let's stay on this history of what happened with pharma. So when you're talking about these companies, you talk about the Merck family. You talk about, is it the Sackler family? Am I saying it correctly?
Yep.
You're talking about the Arthur Sackler, all these other guys. Arthur Sackler acquired Purdue. When you do your investigation and you learn about these families, was their motive a good motive at the beginning, or was the motive, let me find something to get people to get addicted to so we can make money? What was the motive?
So, and I spent a lot of time with the families of OxyContin victims, the children who died, the parents, and they believe that the motive was from the beginning to find an addictive product. Because what's better to sell? An addictive product. It's pretty good. It's like tobacco, big tobacco, right? It's fantastic. You get a nicotine addiction, it helps a little bit on the addiction. But I actually think that in most cases, and put the Sacklers aside for a second, 99% of pharma, people disagree with me, the people in the laboratory who are working on the drugs, they're really looking for a cure or something better. They are looking for that. Where it goes off, it moves then over to marketing. So they get the patent on a particular drug. It lowers cholesterol levels. It helps on insulin. You're doing a little bit better on this. It might be a bit better cognitive. Now the marketing team takes it and says, let's really push it. So what happens on OxyContin is a perfect example. The Sacklers, they owned a British company, and there was a woman who was looking to create hospice care, which we now know everybody has hospice care. But at that time, it didn't exist. And what was stopping her from doing it was she needed a long-acting painkiller, because you couldn't send people home to die if you had to give them a drip of, the equivalent of heroin every 4 hours. The Sacklers came up with it. They invented it. They found a 12-hour time-release form of morphine. Big thing. Then over in the United States, they said, you know what? Morphine's got a bad name. People think of morphine, they think of end of life. So no one's going to take a 12-hour morphine pill. So they put in OxyContin, which is a painkiller, and they market it as OxyContin. Now you say, what, did they market it just to addict hundreds of thousands of people and kill them? No. But what they did is they over-marketed it. So they're approved for a few specific purposes, and then they start to send their salespeople out and say, by the way, it's pretty good for back pain. Hey, osteoarthritis, it might help you for osteoarthritis. Guess what? They tested for osteoarthritis PBD before the FDA. It didn't work for that, but they're still selling it for everything. They oversold it. Doctors start to sell it. They set up pill clinics, so greed gets involved. Look, there are plenty of people to blame. So I always say, don't just blame the family that came up with the drug and then marketed it. It was also over-marketed by doctors who set up pill mills, who pushed it, by the FDA, who got lazy and didn't come in anything and do anything on top of it, by states' attorney generals who didn't act for the longest time. They let them get away with it. There's plenty of blood to go around on the opioid crisis.
So Arthur was a marketing genius, in other words. That's what he was. He was a marketing guy.
Oh, my God. He was the marketing genius of pharma. He brought Madison Avenue sales techniques the pharmaceutical industry in the 1950s. And here's how he did it. This is so fantastic. So in the 1950s, they had penicillin. They got that in World War II. The government paid for it. Nobody owned the patent, so the prices dropped real cheap. So all the drug companies said, hey, we've got to come up with a variation of penicillin, put our own patent on it, get a 20-year license, and then mark the prices up. So they did that, tetracycline, all these different antibiotics. And there's a company over there that has a drug called terramycin. It's not very different. It's Pfizer, and it's one molecule difference from another competitor's antibiotic, which means, in plain English, it's no different. You take the competitor's antibiotic, it's going to do exactly the same thing as this drug terramycin. Arthur Sackler goes to the head of the company and says, guess what? You give me $10 million. Roll me out with $1 million campaign, which was big money, late 1950s. I'll make your drug the #1 selling drug in the world. And they said, you got to be kidding, but we'll give you a chance. And he's the guy who invented the sales teams that go out and try to sell to doctors. He's the one that had them all ready to go out. He's the one who did full color ads, advertisements to doctors, everything else. He made that drug #1. Hoffmann La Roche, a little Swiss pharmaceutical company, said, this guy's good.
Hoffmann La Roche?
Yeah. And guess what? They hired him to make Librium, which was their first anti-anxiety drug, the #1 drug in the country. And then the big one, Valium. They said, hey, Arthur, can you help us make Valium big?
Wow.
He marketed the hell out of that drug, made it the #1 drug in the world for 15 years. That's before OxyContin was even on the drawing board. So he knew how to sell.
So how is he tied to OxyContin? Because he died in 87, but OxyContin doesn't come out till 96.
That's boy, you should be on the legal team for Arthur Sackler's team, because they tried to save his name on all the buildings. You know, when all the buildings were taking down the Sacklers on the schools and everything else. Arthur Sackler's third wife said, "Hey, don't take down Arthur's name. He died before OxyContin was even out, right?" His DNA, his selling ability is what taught that firm how to sell, if you understand. His brothers, there were 3 psychiatrist brothers, by the way. Arthur was the oldest of the 3. The other 2 went ahead. They knew how to do it. And although Arthur was out of the company, the Sacklers were tar and feathered as such a bad name, you couldn't just distinguish and say, oh, by that one died beforehand.
Got it. So his philosophy of advertising is what helped shape how to get OxyContin out there.
No question. They knew how to sell it. They sold it and I'll tell you, one of the things that's difficult, by the way, as a sidelight, we know that, they used to sell all these drug reps would be some wonderfully cute, beautiful woman. She'd be going to the doctor to try to sell it. Some guy who looked great. They were all handsome and beautiful. They were going out to sell the drugs, and they would give the doctors tons of freebies, right? Your doctor would give you a freebie then. Say, why don't you try this? You can't do that with a prescribed drug like OxyContin. So no freebies allowed. So we weren't able to do that. But what they did is they were really smart. They got these pain groups together. They funded the pain groups. They lobbied Congress to be able to say, and doctors, we need more pain. And they did a brilliant thing. They had a group of doctors who said, by the way, all this bad news about taking morphine and that is addictive and it's going to ruin your life. You're going to end up as a dribbling homeless person on the streets of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. It's not true. They've tar and feathered it for too long. If it's taken just for pain, you won't get addicted. It'll be fine. There was a reevaluation going, and they funded that. They bolstered it. They had those doctors go around and speak. Some of them were true believers, so they weren't all fake, but they were funded in part by Purdue. And so in this reevaluation, people started to prescribe more OxyContin, thinking there was no downside. Now you can't get an OxyContin unless you've had 3 different surgeries on the same day.
Got it. So I'm looking at it right now where he worked in the 40s. He joined advertising agency William Douglas McAdams, where he remained active until the day he died. The Harvard University historian wrote in 2019 that the Sackler did not invent direct sales to physicians, but they were a pioneering influence. The Median Advertising Hall of Fame wrote in 98, no single individual did more to shape the character of medical advertising than the multi-talented Dr. Arthur Sackler. His seminal contribution was bringing the full power of advertising and promotion to pharmaceutical marketing.
So PPD, you'll get this completely. Arthur had a view. The pharmaceutical companies were stuck in the mud. They said, we have an unusual financial model. We don't sell directly to patients. We sell to doctors. We've got to convince doctors to prescribe our pill. He said, no, sell to patients. So he got these medical health writers in Time magazine, in National Geographic, in all these different places to talk about the new wonder drug. He would hype it. People would read about it. They'd go to their doctor and ask about it. That's why we see so many television ads in America for pharma products since 1997, direct-to-consumer ads. So you think to yourself, hey, wait a minute, why are they spending all that money advertising to us, the patients? We can't prescribe the pill. Mm-hmm. We can't go out and get it. Mm-hmm. But he knew that you could create the demand. And he sold Valium to women. 2/3 of the prescriptions for Valium for its 15 years were to women, and he sold it to them. My wife often, shakes her head when she sees this. He sold it to men this way. He said, men, you need Valium for the following reason. You go out, you earn the paycheck, you're bringing home the money, you're bringing home the butter and bread to keep the family going. You're under stress and you're going to get an ulcer. Valium will keep you from getting an ulcer, make you better at business. Now, for women, you are hysterical, you're a little high-strung, and you're taking care of the children, and you're supposed to be doing everything at home. I'm going to make you less high-strung. You won't be so hysterical. Take Valium, and you'll be better off. Now, today, we would have him tar and feathered, and he'd be up in front of Congress for such a sexist ad. They were also selling at the same time Ritalin so that women could do more housework faster, believe it or not. So a combination of Ritalin for faster housework and Valium to take the edge off. The 1960s advertising, when I look at it, is the type of thing you would think that you're making it up. It has to be from The Onion. But it's true, and it worked.
Are there videos of Arthur Sackler actually speaking? Like, are there things of a lot of I can't find anything of him right now.
No. So two things happened. Whatever was out there, the Sacklers ended up tying up. Right, so there's nothing. You go to Wiki Commons, there's nothing. You would look for material. You want to see him talking. There isn't. There used to be some videos of him because he was a major art collector. This is a guy serious, right?
Yeah,
he had the largest collection of. As a matter of fact, sidelight. So I did a Freedom of Information request. I always do Freedom of Information requests. Most of the time, it's a waste of time. They send you back a thing that says, "Get lost. We're not going to give you anything," and then 3 years later, they give you something that's redacted. On the Sacklers, I got documents that I thought were really interesting for the 1950s. These guys were hardcore communists. Yeah, we forget about that.
The Sackler family?
The three Sackler brothers. This is amazing. So, listen, this is fantastic. So, Jewish immigrant parents come to New York in the early 1900s. They at a time when, if you remember, when Eugene Debs ran as a socialist for the presidency, and a third of New York City voters were voting socialist at the time. A majority of Jewish immigrants, because they came in, had from a socialist background. Now, he grew up in that atmosphere, but he was much further than that. He was investigated. All three Sackler brothers were by the FBI. He used his advertising firm that you just mentioned a moment ago to give jobs to people who lost it in the government because they had been tarred and feathered as communists under the McCarthy investigations. He said, "Come over and work for me." And he said that one of the greatest, he liked this British physician that had gone over to China and died. He viewed communist China as the Great Revolution.
Wow.
And here, I think he held those beliefs until he made his first billion. And then he sort of gave up on socialism and communism, but they came from real red roots. Yeah, you get it.
Capitalism will do that to you. Success will do that to you. You start winning, you're like, I don't know if this...
I don't know about this idea of sharing.
Redistribution of all the wealth and giving it to everybody else. So it's interesting because there's a story about the guy, Arthur Sackler, when in 1950, Pfizer only had 7 salespeople. He went in, and by 1957, he encouraged Pfizer to increase their sales team. They went from 7 in 1950 to 2,000 in 1957, and Pfizer took off. So this guy's a marketing genius with a consulting firm that he used to be with that somebody else. Yeah, right there, from 8 in 1947 to 2000 by the end of it. So okay.
Hi, I'm Gerald Posner. I'm an investigative reporter. I've written 13 books about everything from chasing Nazi war criminals to the heroin trade to 9/11 to Saudis to fundamentalists and to the drug industry and to money inside the Vatican. You can ask me just about everything on my next. Reach out to me and talk to me about 9/11. Find out what's happening in terms of the Epstein files. If you want to find out what's happened in the recent Trump assassination attempt by crooks, I'm looking into that as well. I've got a whole series of things, including the transgender industry on children, that are on my hot list. So send me some questions.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.